Welcome back, everyone, to the Topical Minds podcast. I'm your host, Abdullah Califado, and this is episode number 9. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, you can support it by liking, sharing with your friends and family, and of course, subscribing so you get notified as and when new episodes get released. You can tune into the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. All right, my guest today is Zehra Mahoon, a master mindset and law of attraction coach and manifesting expert. She is the author of 12 books on these subjects and the creator of the Unlimited 40-Day Law of Attraction Workout, as well as Thrive, an illustrated law of attraction guide to reducing worry, overcoming frustration, and freeing your mind. All of these books are available on Amazon, so please make sure to check them out. Zehra's coaching program helps individuals to identify the blockages that are keeping them from achieving success. She helps individuals change their self-talk and develop new thinking habits that open up a world of new possibilities. I myself am absolutely fascinated by the law of attraction, the power of thoughts, and having the ability to reshape our realities. So safe to say that I'm extremely excited to have this conversation. Thank you very much for being on, Zehra, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about our conversation today.
So I would love for you to share your journey to becoming a mindset and law of attraction coach. I know on your website, you speak about the experiences throughout your life that caused you to recognize and reflect. But was there a specific aha moment for you?
Many of them, not as a whole string of them. Not one moment that I can say, oh, that was the turning point. No, I think they're sprinkled all over the place. And I still continue having aha moments. You know what I mean? It's like, even though I'm teaching the stuff, but I'm still learning and growing as well. Because I think that it's a journey. It's not the destination is the grave. So as long as we're alive, we are never going to get there. We'll always keep growing. In fact, I don't remember who said the words, but beautiful words are that if you stop growing, you stop living.
Yep, there's another saying along the same lines. If you stop growing, you start to die. Like there's quite a few of those where where learning is a lifelong process. But you mentioned throughout your journey, I was taking a look at your bio on your website, and you were saying along your journey, you kept being presented with these books.
Yes.
And these books on philosophy. And was that something that you had manifested perhaps unknowingly? How did that come across?
It happened because I was asking questions. Since I was a child, I wanted to know why things worked the way they did and why different people got different sets of results. So I was always asking those questions. And I believe that the books came to me in response to my asking. The universe, whether you call it God, universe, source, whatever word you use, that entity that we feel is all-knowing and all-seeing kept bringing me information and assisting me in my journey by getting some of the answers so that I could then be satisfied with the answers and ask new questions.
And when you came across, you mentioned one of the things in 2006 that really stuck with me was, you went through, some issues in life, and then one of the outcomes you mentioned was you left with Abraham.
Yes.
And you have a book that says, I love Abe. You've got quite a few references to having these questions and having them answered by Abraham.
Yes.
Can you speak about that? Like, how exactly did you sort of benefit from that?
Okay, so when the movie The Secret came out in 2000, I believe it was 2005, could have been 2004, but I came across it in 2005. It had an impact on me in the sense that The Secret pulled together everything that I had read about in the past. So it kind of brought it all together in one place. And so I still had questions and there were still some missing pieces, but I was so intrigued by it that I decided that I would go and research each of the teachers in the movie. Some of those teachers I had already read and I had been following, and some of them were new to me. So those who were new to me, I started researching them and listening to them. And in fact, Abraham was the last one that I went to because it said the teachings of Abraham. And when I read that, I thought it had a religious connotation. And so because I was moving away from organized religion, that was the last one that I went to. And it's interesting that the last one is the one that I stayed with, because the philosophies that Abraham Hicks teaches really explained everything to me. Like, I found all the answers that I ever wanted about religion, about faith and trust. I think that my faith, my trust has become deeper and stronger, and my understanding of how it works has deepened and improved because of understanding law of attraction.
So, what was the connection? Did you sort of become more fascinated with the law of attraction after reading that particular book, or were you always aware of it, but was it something about that book that really enabled you to sort of accomplish what it is that you were looking to accomplish?
It's interesting you asked this question, because law of attraction is a new term, but the teachings that are in that are under that umbrella have been there for a very long time. They just weren't called law of attraction. They were called other things. The science of positive thinking, John Maxwell, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, all of them have been talking about law of attraction, just not calling it law of attraction. And the term law of attraction was actually coined by Abraham Hicks, and it was coined by them way back in the mid-1980s. But it came to the forefront because of the publicity surrounding the Secret documentary. And so, was it one thing in the book? No, it wasn't one book. It was the cumulative teachings of all the people that I've mentioned, and many that I have not mentioned. Louise Hay, Eckhart Tolle, the list goes on. I have read so many and been impacted positively by so many. I've learned from all of them. What Abraham Hicks did for me, and Abraham Hicks, their books, I've certainly read all their books and attended many of their programs, is that they brought all of the pieces of the puzzle together. So what happened when I came across Abraham was that I came away with a structured approach to how things happen. Prior to that, it was one thing happened and you find a reason for why it happened. And then the second thing happens in your life or someone else's life, and you observe it and you assign a different reason to it. And so all these events that were happening in my life and other people's lives, I was assigning reasons to them, but those reasons were subjective. And I'm a scientist, I'm an analyst, I'm a researcher. Subjectivity doesn't work for me. I need things to be objective. I need things to have a formula, because if it's subjective, then God is like any human and can be swayed by emotion and can be swayed. So, but if God is fair, then that subjectivity should not enter in it, you see? And so my lifelong question was, is God fair? And I couldn't find the answer to it because all the answers were subjective. But I said to myself, God must have, or, there must be a system, because you can't be subjective. There's no subjective right or wrong, subjective good or bad. It's not up to somebody's whim to call one thing good and the other thing bad. So there has to be a system for why things happen the way they happen in the world. And I want to figure out what that system is. And the penny that dropped for me when I listened to Abraham was that I figured it out. I figured it out, and I was finally able to zone in on that system. And once I created that system in my mind, I could explain everything using that system. So all these teachers helped me to come up with my own system, which now I use all the time, and it helps me to unravel why things are happening the way they are to different people in different phases of life, different genders, different geographies, but the rules are the same. The rules of the universe are consistent. And if you understand what those rules are and you start following those rules, you literally have absolute control over your life. And it just takes away all the worrying, all the anxiety, all the not knowing what is going to happen next. All of that goes away. And then life becomes really, really fun, because worry sucks the fun out of life.
Yeah, no, it's I have so many questions when I was listening to you. So the first question I have is, when you speak about the system that you have takes into account these rules that govern the universe, right?
Yes.
Now, how does one develop a better understanding of what these rules are? And how does one, once you have that understanding of these rules, how can you implement certain, behaviors or practices, or just having that right mindset to make sure that moving on from this point onwards, that your life improves for the better?
Yep. Absolutely. Very good questions. And same questions that I had many, many years ago. So here's what it is. In the book Unlimited and in the book Thrive, I have enumerated 16 principles. And those 16 principles, if you understand them, then everything opens up. So yes, there are principles. At the broad level, you understand that it's positive thinking, but there are extensions of that, and you've got to understand those extensions in order for that positive thinking to start working. And once you harness that information, so it has to do with your belief systems, it has to do with your self-talk, it has to do with your actions and the way you respond to the world. The rules of the universe are really simple. What you focus on, you make it bigger in your life. And that is a concept that's not new. We've had that concept around for many, many years. Everybody's heard of the analogy, the glass half full, glass half empty. Everybody knows these things. There are nuances that make it work, and there are nuances that prevent it from working. And when you understand what is it that gets in the way, and you stop doing that behavior that gets in your way, now the path is open. So it would take way longer than we have today for me to explain how all of that works. But I'll give you an example that puts it into context. I'll tell you a little story. And the story is about my little boy, who was little way back then. Now he's no longer that little. But my son, when I believe he was maybe 5 or 6 years old. Maybe he was a little younger. I don't remember exactly. But I was working in the kitchen, and he called me. And I knew that he was at the top of the stairs coming down to the ground floor of our house. So I went over there because his call was really urgent. So I went, and I was like, "What is it, Ferris?" And he was standing at the landing. So our staircase went up, and then there was a landing, and then it went further up. And they were about, I'd say maybe 15 or 16 steps up to the landing. So he was standing on the landing, and he said to me, "I want to jump from here. Can you bring all the cushions from the living room and put them on the floor? Because I want to jump." So I said, "Yes, I'll bring all the cushions, and I'm going to stand here to catch you. But do you think that you can jump from the landing?" And he thought about it a little bit, and he said, "Do you think I can jump from the landing?" And I said, "Well, I'm not the one jumping. You're the one jumping. You tell me, are you feeling confident?" And he was confused. So I said, "Just close your eyes and ask yourself if you're ready to jump." So he closed his eyes, and he opened them, and he said, "I think I'll come down a few steps. I think I'll come down." So he came down 3 or 4 steps. And then he looked at me, and he said, "Should I jump from here?" And I said, I don't know, Ferris. I think if you think that you can jump from there, then you can jump from there. Do you think you can jump from there? And he closed his eyes again and he opened them 10 seconds later and he said, no, I think I'll come down a few steps. So he came down. He did that 3 times until he was only maybe 5 or 6 steps away from the ground. And then he said, I think I can do it now. I said, okay, go for it. And he did. And he, of course, he was fine. But the point I want to make is it would have been very easy for me to say to him, Ferris, no, you can't jump from there. It's not safe. You'll fall. You'll hurt yourself. I did not do that. And I did not do it based on my knowledge of how law of attraction works. Because what I have discovered is when you plant a belief inside another person from a position of authority, and that person accepts that belief, then their life will unfold to reflect that belief. Mentors see in people things that those people cannot see in themselves. So a mentor gives an individual the confidence to go forward and do things that they would not have otherwise done. So the mentor is actually planting positive beliefs in that person. But a lot of times, without knowing it, we plant negative beliefs inside people that influence what that person will do. Whereas what we should do is leave them alone to make their own decision. Because everybody's decision is based on their belief system. There are people who can jump from the top of the stairs. There are people who do that. But if I told my son that he can't do it, then for the rest of his life, he won't be able to do it. Because mother would have told him that. And he would have accepted it. What I taught my son was use your own judgment. Don't base your decision based on mother's belief. Base your decision based on your own belief. What do you believe about what you can do, what your capability is? Even though I'm his mother, I cannot know what his capacity is. And so a lot of times we tell people, oh, you can't do that, or don't do that. You'll get hurt. Typical example that I noticed during winter here in Oshawa, where I live, a mother on my street yelling to her daughter, don't run, you'll fall. Next thing you know, the daughter falls on the snow. And now the mother yells, I told you so. But the point is that the mother gave the daughter the belief that she's going to fall. And now both mother and daughter are focused on the fact that an accident can happen. And law of attraction says if you focus there, it will come. So it's coming because you focus there. If you had not focused there, that child would be fine. And then these things become rules. Mother said, don't run. So now I'm never going to run.
Right.
And mother saying, I know better than you. I was right. You should have listened to me. And that becomes a theme with parents who say, you should listen to me because I'm right. You don't know, mother, that I have better ability to balance myself than you do. You don't know, mother, that I am careful. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And so this is how negative beliefs can get communicated. And when negative beliefs become communicated to people, they become part of their life. Because when you don't say no to something, you are saying yes to it.
Do you think it's possible for individuals who experience difficult times and problems, challenges? Do you think that it's possible for you to experience those without bringing them onto yourself?
You wouldn't, if you didn't bring them on, then how would you experience them?
No. So, for example, like let's assume you and I'm just thinking about a very specific example, but let's assume you're a child, and you've had some, perhaps you've been abused. Right? Like in those situations where it's, you're experiencing those situations, but you're still extremely young and you're not necessarily thinking about that, right? Like you won't be thinking about those situations. How would those occur without you?
Abdullah, nobody ever asks for abuse. Nobody does, whether they're a child or a grown-up. But abuse happens. And I can speak to it personally because I've been there and done that, been the victim. No longer the victim, because I understand that there is no such thing as victimhood. The reason people, whether they're children or adults, attract abuse is because they live in a place of fear. A child who is afraid, and sometimes it's as simple as that fear being caused by separation anxiety from a parent. So a child is afraid of being separated from a parent or is afraid of anything. That fear is a focus, is that fear is that point of focus that I was talking to you about. So you then attract other things that magnify that fear. Whatever, if you're on the vibration of confidence, then you're not on the frequency of fear. You're on the frequency of being confident. You attract a whole different set of circumstances, events, and people to yourself from that place. And when you're in a place of fear, you attract things that reflect your fear. This is why many great teachers have said that your outer world, and I attribute this quote specifically to Deepak Chopra, who said that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Whatever you are, whatever emotion you are on the inside, in your heart, is what reflects in your life. So if you're in fear, fearful things will happen. If you are in love, things that reflect that love back to you will happen. If you are worried and in doubt of what will happen, then more things will happen to increase your worry and stress. The universe is built on a mechanism that allows you to judge where you are internally so that you can change it and therefore be able to change the next thing that happens to you. Let me focus more. Let me go deeper into this example that you brought up. Very important situation. When somebody is in a situation where they have attracted fear, and you attract everything that happens to you. So you've attracted fear. So everywhere you look, you are fearful because you are so afraid of what will happen to you next. And fear is an absence of trust, because when you trust, you don't care what happens next. You trust that whatever happens will work out all right. Fear means I'm not trusting. I am so afraid. I don't know. I can't talk to strangers. I can't cross the road on my own. I have to do things in a certain way. I'm always afraid that something will go wrong. And then things happen. And at first, small things happen. A plate breaks, a glass breaks, you stub your toe, you cut your hand. Small things happen that tell you that you're in a place of fear. That's an opportunity for you to take note and say, oh, I guess I am thinking and feeling in a manner that the universe is telling me is not good for me. I need to do something to change. All right, then I have to change the way I'm thinking and feeling. But if you let it continue, then the stub toe turns into a bigger accident. And the fear of something going wrong brings you people who will magnify that fear for you. At first, somebody will just say something abusive. And then the next thing you know, they'll snatch something from you or touch you in an inappropriate way. And then the next thing you know, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that is because you haven't done anything to fix the fear. And it's a spiral. It's a domino effect, because the first thing happens and you don't know what to do about it. Then the next thing happens. And the reason these things are happening is because the universe is sending you messages to say, stop what you're doing with your thinking and your feeling. Because if you keep going down this rabbit hole, more bad stuff will come. But if you don't know any better, and I certainly didn't, your parents didn't know better. My parents certainly didn't know better. If you don't know any better and the child is never taught that the thing that they need to change in order for their life to become better is that they need to change the way they're thinking and feeling, then they become more and more afraid. And it doesn't just result in abuse. It can manifest itself in a health situation. A lot of people ask me, Zehra, why did this baby attract this terminal illness? That child hasn't even lived enough life. Well, that is true. The child hasn't thought about anything or lived any life, but the child is in fear. Children can be in fear before they are verbal. You don't need to be verbal and thinking in order to feel fear. The child can feel insecure just because the mother had a bad pregnancy and cried all the time because she was afraid. The child absorbs all of that. Children are psychic and they absorb the vibration and the emotion and the feelings and the thoughts of the adults around them. They may not be able to express them, but they are absorbing them and they are having a reaction to them. They are having an emotional reaction. And this is why children take things and make them personal. This is why when a child's parents are fighting with each other, the child becomes scared.
Yeah, there's so many different factors. I mean, I definitely do see how, you could potentially be doing that, like based on your thoughts. I wanted to come back to an example that you gave, and I think this was on your website, but you were saying when you wanted to manifest your house, you were able to do that using using the law of attraction, but then you also almost lost it because of the law of attraction. Can you elaborate on that? Like how did that play out? I'm curious to know.
Well, here's the thing. I created it and I manifested it because I thought it into place. I had total belief that I would get it, and I got it. The reason I got close to losing it was because once I got it, I started wondering whether or not I can keep it. Can I still generate the income that I must generate in order to make good on all my commitments, in order to manage this house, plus send my children to school and do all the other things that I need to do? And I started thinking, oh my God, I'm a single mother. I have no one. I have no support system. I've got no family, yada, yada, yada. So what were they? They were all fearful thoughts. I was afraid. When you're afraid, then something happens that magnifies that fear, that brings it right to your face to say, change it or else. And so this universe doesn't do anything suddenly to us. The universe keeps sending it. It goes from a green light to amber and red. And if you don't understand that the light is changing and you don't stop in time, then you get in the middle of the intersection and end up in a pileup. And unfortunately, and that's why I wrote the book Manifesting Mistakes, because I made those mistakes. I almost lost the house. Thank God I didn't lose the house, but I almost lost the house. And I know exactly what I was doing wrong that made that happen. And now I am very quick to change my thoughts.
So, like, let's assume you you're in a situation where perhaps you have anxiety or you have fearful thoughts. And of course, with the whole pandemic situation, we've seen mental health issues on the rise. Mental illness has become more prevalent in society. We've seen reports of increasing anxiety levels. Adults are more increasingly reporting symptoms of anxiety and depression and mental illness. So let's assume you're in a situation where you're struggling with mental health. And what you want to do now is you want to start to think positively to get yourself out of this mess. One of the things that you can do is, of course, meditate. And my mom is a big proponent of meditation. She's a certified yoga teacher. So she's always telling me about, breathe, do these techniques and so on and so forth. But I wanted to get your thoughts on meditation, and if perhaps you have any thoughts on where one can start with meditation. Perhaps it's simple breathing techniques, or how much time perhaps one should devote to to just make sure that you are meditating mindfully. If that makes any sense. Do you have any thoughts on that?
For sure. So first of all, I want to say something about the whole mental health situation globally. I don't believe that mental health situations have increased. I think that they were always there, but they were taboo. And I think that more people are now comfortable talking about their mental health issues. Our parents' generation was just as stressed. It's just that they didn't talk about mental health because it was a subject that was thought of as being a no-no. If you had mental health issues, you need to be locked up, kind of. And so people didn't talk about it. So meditation is actually a shortcut to doing the thinking work. So when the universe is sending you indications that something you're doing is not quite right and you need to change it, you have two options. You can think your way out of that situation and improve your thinking, or you can meditate. Meditation is the opposite of thinking, because in meditation, you're actually going to a place of absence of thought. But you get to that place of absence of thought by thinking your way there. You think your way into meditation. Mindfulness is the first stage to meditation. Mindfulness in its own is not meditation. Mindfulness is the technique that we use in order to go into meditation. Meditation is the space between your thoughts. So our thoughts go very quickly. On average, it takes 4 to 6 seconds to think a thought. But there is this split second space between thoughts. All meditation is in that space. Through mindfulness, which means focusing on one object or one phrase, or just the sound of your breathing or the sound of the washing machine, doesn't matter, a sound, by focusing on just one thing and telling your mind, I am going to focus on this. And when my mind wanders, I'm going to bring it back here. What happens is you slow down your thoughts so that the space between your thoughts becomes bigger. And that makes it easier to fall into this gap. Mindfulness is what helps us to get into the gap. And then the next stage is actually going deep into the gap to a place of meditation where there is no thought. So I teach meditation, and I teach meditation through the Oshawa Library. I have been teaching meditation through the Oshawa Library since 2010, I believe. Most welcome to join. The sessions are free. I do not charge anything for teaching meditation. I believe that that's like saying I'm going to teach you to pray and you should pay for it.
Yeah, that's so. If you don't mind sharing perhaps like the link with me, and I can include it in the show notes as well, and I'm more than happy to check it myself. But I have a question for you. So I would imagine then, just making sure that you are able to meditate and get into that space in between your thoughts. First of all, you would have to practice mindfulness.
Yes.
And then once you have that down, you'd be able to increase that space, and then you're able to
go
meditate.
into meditation. Yeah. And well, you asked me how long would it take. And so it depends on the person. Those people who are A-type personalities like me, it can take them a very long time to learn how to meditate. For people who are not A-type personalities, you are in much better shape. You will learn it very quickly. You don't need to spend more than 15 or 20 minutes a day in meditation, but it is recommended that you meditate on a daily basis. And the reason for that is that it's like any skill, even like going to gym. If you go every day and then you stop going for a month, your body is creaky when you go back. And so it's just when you keep doing it and you do it consistently, it's easier to do. For me now, as soon as I sit down with the intention to meditate, I put some music on in the background, some white noise. And it doesn't, I don't even think it takes me any time at all. It's like a switch now that I've programmed through habit. It's like you drive a car, and in the beginning, if you remember when you first started learning how to drive, you would look at the speed gauge to see where you were. And now you kind of have a feel for when you're going too fast or you're going too slow. You know what your general speed is. And so you don't have to look at the speed gauge all the time. And so meditation is like that. You have to practice mindfulness until you don't need it anymore, because now you've got it. You don't, mindfulness is exactly like that. It's like looking at the fuel gauge. And if your eyes wander to other things, you bring them back to the speed gauge. And then your eyes wander and you bring them back to the speed gauge, right? That's mindfulness. Just like for driving, you don't need to be mindful after a while. Similarly, for meditation, after a while, you don't need to be mindful. You go straight there.
And how long does it take for you to know, or when do you know that you have mastered mindfulness? Is it when you are able to, for perhaps a certain amount of time, not lose focus on a particular thing? Is that how you know that you've mastered it, or?
That is a really, really good question, Abdullah. How do you know that you've mastered mindfulness? There's a very easy way to know. If you have mastered mindfulness, and I always say mindfulness with appreciation for where you are now, because if you are you can be mindful of negative things as well. Mindfulness means being focused on something positive. If you have mastered mindfulness, you are living your life. You are happy. Good things are happening. You have confidence. You have trust and faith that everything that is coming is good. You are happy waking up in the morning, and you end each day feeling happy and satisfied. That's how you know you've mastered it.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal state for a lot of people, right? Is to wake up feeling happy and ending the day feeling satisfied and happy as well.
Exactly. And that's the purpose of the tool. The tool is meant to give you that end result. So if you're not getting the end result, it can mean that you don't know how to use the tool, that you've learned to use it the wrong way, and so you're not getting results. It could mean that you're not giving the tool enough time. You're not using it for in the way that you're supposed to. It can mean so many things.
Is there a link between visualization and the law of attraction? Is visualization just one technique, perhaps, for you? Okay.
Yes, it is. Visualization is just one tool.
And is it something that you perhaps have experience with?
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more about it?
It would take too long. It's a course on its own. But I will say this, that most people use visualization absolutely incorrectly, because if you were using it correctly, then you would have everything that you want. And the reason people use the tool incorrectly is because they use it to ask the universe to give them something that they want. And that's not the purpose of the tool. So if you use it, if anybody is using the tool that way, I'm going to sit to visualize because I want this thing, then you're doing it wrong, because that's not the purpose of the tool.
So I would say, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if that's how you're doing it, then you should stop, because you're actually hurting yourself.
So how should it be used then? Because I have, and again, my experience with it is, of course, extremely limited, and I've seen a couple of videos, and every now and then you come across these videos where it's like, hey, look at this person, they used visualization and they were able to accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
And so it seems as though it is a way, or it's promoted
if used
as a
properly.
way.
If used properly, yes. If used properly, visualization is an extremely powerful tool. But when it is not used properly, it can actually push the thing that you want further away from you. Okay. So what I'm going to say is many things. First of all, I teach visualization inside the 40-day Law of Attraction workout. So if you really want to learn how to do it, you can join. Secondly, if you want free resources, if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a free class on visualization. There's also a free class on meditation. There's a lot of material on visualization and meditation on my YouTube channel. I share my material freely. My paid programs are meant to take people in a structured path towards a certain goal. But the information and the tools that I use, I give them freely to anyone who wants them. And so you'll find those tools on my YouTube channel. There's a subtle difference in doing visualization because it can be done in two different ways. Visualization works the best when you're not using it to ask for anything, but you're using it only to enjoy, basking. And so you can visualize a trip to China. It might be not something that you actually want to do, but you can visualize it and go there in a place of enjoyment, and you will get the job that you actually want, or the lover that you actually want, or the health that you actually want. Because visualization is about invoking the feeling, the emotion that makes good things come. That's the purpose of visualization. The purpose of visualization is not to ask, but to allow.
That's fascinating. So I have tried it once. I've tried it a few times before, and I was doing it for the wrong purpose because I was doing it to get. I don't know if it worked or not for me, but I did end up getting something out of it, which I thought perhaps was attributed to visualization. So I very quickly said, oh, I successfully did it, and I attributed it to visualization. Maybe it wasn't the case. Maybe it was just a function of me thinking positively. I'm not sure.
Well, we can never get to the bottom of that because our thoughts zoom by so quickly that who knows what exactly you were thinking, because each thought has attractive power. Each thought is a magnet. So to in that haystack of thoughts, to find that one thought that brought you what you got, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Once you just learn how to think positively, all your thoughts are empowering, and all your thoughts have positive, attractive power. And you don't have to single out that one thought.
Right. It's just a magnified effect of having
everything.
positive thoughts.
See, because here's the thing, I wrote a book. It's called How to Pray So That God Listens. And in that book, the first line of the book is, every thought is a prayer. Every thought is a prayer. God is not a selective listener. God doesn't listen to you when you're visualizing or when you sit down for 10 minutes to pray. What do you think God is doing all day? God is listening to every thought. The universe is listening to and responding to every thought that you think. So it's not about the 10 minutes that you spent in visualization. What are you doing for the rest of your day? The universe is responding to the balance of your thought, which means everything. The time when you were in visualization is as important as the time outside of visualization. You got to make good use of both, not just the one. That's ridiculous.
I agree. I think it's such a important statement to make. Is I think it's important to it's good to set aside those 5 to 10 minutes in your day and just breathe and try and reset.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I totally agree with you. It's important to be able to have those positive thoughts throughout the day.
Absolutely. That's the key.
I would imagine it's very difficult to do that. As your role as a coach.
No, it's not at all difficult. But if you keep telling yourself it's difficult, then it is.
Right. Of course, because then you're manifesting it.
That's right. That's right.
Right. But yes, the book that you just mentioned is one of the books that I actually want to read. I think it's going to be interesting to go through that.
Well, send me your address and I'll send you the book.
No, I can support you. I've taken a look at your link on Amazon. I can do that bit for sure. I did want to ask you another question on mindfulness and your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
How are these all connected? There's your mindset. There's having positive thoughts. There's having there's being aware of, negative thoughts and staying away from those. Like when we say that we want to be mindful, like it's it's somewhat vague in the sense that, I think, and perhaps I'm just speaking out of my own sort of experience, but perhaps people struggle with what the true definition of being mindful means. And we just spoke about, being mindful, how mindfulness is important for you to be able to meditate, and how when you master it, you just feel a sense of happiness throughout the day. And but how does one, like, where does mindset fit in? How does it connect to mindfulness? And
very good question. Okay, so here's the thing. You have to train your mind. Absolutely. Once you train your mind in what you want it to focus on, then it will focus on that. It will adopt that way of thinking. It's a perspective. Remember, in the beginning, I talked about the glass half full and glass half empty. And we all know that people have a perspective. When you teach yourself to always have a perspective of glass half full, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to consciously say, oh, am I thinking glass half full or glass half empty? You automatically do. But there is a period of time that it takes for you to learn that if you don't already have it. So in that period of time, yes, you have to watch your thoughts. In that period of time, yes, you have to do exercises that keep you more towards the positive. And one of the best ways to learn, in fact, the way that I taught myself was by observing other people talking and then correlating that with things that were happening in their life. So I got my evidence. I proved my theory to myself, the theory that I told you I developed, the structure that I developed. I proved my theory to myself by creating a correlation between what I was thinking and saying and what would happen in my life, and doing the same with other people. And so you get to a point where, how should I say this? It's okay. I have an analogy. You know how we teach children how to write in script? Well, in the beginning, that child has to really practice. I remember when I was in grade 3, we used to have to practice pages and pages of just writing the letter A and then writing the letter B, right? But then after grade 3, I had a writing style. And I didn't need to pay attention anymore. And so, yes, in the beginning, when you're learning something that you have not yet learned, you have to apply yourself. You have to look at what how you've written, and then you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do it differently next time. I'm going to try it this way. And so, law of attraction, practicing how to be a positive person in the way you talk, you just adopt that language. It's like adopting a new language. And I remember in the beginning, I used to say to myself, oh, stop, don't say that. Stop right now before it comes out of your mouth. And now I don't have to do that because I know where to stop. It's like when you're learning how to drive a car, in the beginning, you're not that good at estimating how quickly you should start applying the brake. And sometimes you go past the line on the ground at the stop sign. And then you say, oh, next time I should do it this way. And then eventually you are so perfect, you don't have to think about it. You see a stop sign and you automatically stop in time. And mindfulness, being positive thinking is the same way. It literally is, Abdullah, like learning a new language. And then you learn it, and then you practice it, and you live that language every day. You use it every day until it becomes your default language. It's like for a lot of us, especially in Canada, born in different cultures, different ethnicities, and knowing different languages, a lot of people come to Canada and they don't really know English. But and in the beginning, they have to translate from their mother tongue into English. And then after a while, they're not translating anymore. They know it. So it's a new language, you're learning it. And after a while, you'll know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes total sense. I couldn't agree more. And this is a topic that I have so many questions on, but I appreciate you taking out the time. I know you have to leave. If there's any, if there's any links or if there's any anything that you would like for me to add along with the show notes, please make sure to send it across and I'll make sure to include it. Again, thank you very much for the time. I really do appreciate it. I think this was a great conversation and definitely extremely helpful. I would make sure to check out some of the books that I find extremely interesting as well as some of your material on YouTube. For everybody that is tuning in, thank you for tuning in. Again, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe where, the podcast is available on multiple different platforms. So please make sure to tune in and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.